Hi, I'm Gavin, and today I'm going to talk about depth of field. Now, it's a funny one, this. It's sort of, let's put this right out there at the beginning. Depth of field is a creative tool, and basically, it can be employed in any way you wish. For what is it? But I mean, depth of field is basically the in focus area of your lens. So as you ramp up the aperture, your depth of field will increase. And so you'll have an area in there which is in focus. And you have a hyperfocal point, which is the most in focus, and you have an area of acceptable focus within your sort of depth of field area. Now you can sort of see this because I mean, if you look behind me, my background's all blurry, so that this is depth of field working. I've got I'm on f2, so basically the focal point's quite short, and behind me it's blurred out. But if you get closer to the camera, there'll be another zone which will be sort of the same thing. And this is basically how it works. So depending on what your aperture setting is, will depend on your depth of field. And that's fundamentally it. Now, with photography, it's really easy. You use depth of field to isolate a subject, or you use it for massive depth of field like f22 or whatever. If you're doing macro photography, you don't want any depth of field. You just want to clear, you just want to snap the entire thing. Landscape photography, high f-stop numbers, big, small apertures to capture everything. So how it works is the lower the f number, the smaller the depth of field. So if I'm f2, the depth of field is tiny. Now, it's great with photography. It's sort of like, you've got control, you've got time, you can look at something, you go, okay, I put it on f8, I'll get a lot in here, this bit here won't be in focus, that bit won't be, I've got this bit. Or if you're doing portrait, you're on f2, you want just the face, you want to isolate the subject, blur the background out. So in photography, it's very easy to understand. Where it becomes a bit weird is when we jump into the realms of cinematography. Now, all of a sudden we started to get full frame cameras, because the size of the sensor helps you, gives you a full frame sensor. It's easier to achieve depth of field than it is with a Mark IV third sensor, or even a super 35 sensor. So we're seeing a lot more depth of field now because the cameras can do it a bit more easier. But it is, as I stated at the beginning, a sort of creative choice. And it is, I was doing something the other day and someone said, oh, I want everything to look cinematic. So what do you mean by that then? Well, so I went with the backgrounds blurred out. Well, that's not strictly true, is it? The big thing is obviously on a rolling cinema camera, you've got to maintain focus. Now, on a lot of sets, obviously on a big film set, you've got a focus puller. It's all being measured, marked out, and everything's tracked, and everybody, there's marks on the focus dial where things are going so you can maintain focus. There are certain situations where someone wants this background and you've got to film somebody and they're moving in and out of shot like this. So if you've got a blurry background and you're say on f1, f1.2 or f2, you're going to have an incredibly difficult time keeping that person in focus, because you're on huge sensors now. So this is being shot in 8K. The critical focus, or the plane of focus, is minuscule. So as a person moves backwards and forwards, as they talk to you in an interview and you've got that blurred background, they'll be out of focus. Part of them, the nose will be in focus, but by the time you get to the ear will be out of focus. So this area here, as they move, they rock, they adjust, and trying to pull focus, trying to match focus manually without the dials on the side of these SLR lenses, it's really, really hard to do. So yeah, I mean, it's a tricky subject matter. It's sort of like, they say it looks cinematic, but does it? If you watch a lot of movies, Full Metal Jacket's a great example of this. A lot of that shot at probably I would imagine f5.6 or probably a bit more. And you can see that it's all about the distance. It's not so much about the blurred. If you move the background away on f5.6, you can sort of see that basically it will give you that blurred out background, but you're still shooting at f5.6, so you've got a nice depth of field to play in. Now I'm going to show some examples on the screen of one that's shot on f5.6, and then I'm going to show basically f2, and then I think I did f8. So I'll fire those up on the screen now, and I'll talk underneath them. I mean, basically these are done with manual focus, and basically, as you can see, it's incredibly difficult to sort of maintain focus if the camera anything moves at like f2. When you get to sort of like f5.6, it gets easier. I've still got, because there's a huge distance behind the image, I've still got room to look at this rose. And basically there's a bit of focus. I've got an area that there can movements allowed. I've still got the backgrounds blurred. Then when you get to sort of like f22, everything's in focus. So you've got everything's like deep focused. So you can see everything, but that's potentially not the aesthetic look that you're after. So I think the point I'm trying to make about depth of field is you need to use it judiciously, and you also don't need to go. So if you've got a lot of depth in the background, you've got background separation. Obviously, the further away the background is in your shot, that will drop into that blurry background that you're after. If you're shooting in confined spaces, well, then you've got not many options. But obviously, it's incredibly difficult, to do it. So, I mean, and then there's the next thing. Thankfully now, and this is a sort of its own devil or own genie in the bottle. These cameras have got autofocus. Okay, the cameras we're using, even autofocus is coming to some of the largest cinema cameras. And with autofocus, you can put it off. So right now I'm on f2 and I'm moving backwards and forwards, and this has got facial tracking on it, and it's keeping me in focus all the time. I don't have to ride the focus ring to try and keep my head in. If I move back, it'll track me. If I move up to camera, it's going to track me. So I can stay in focus. So if you're shooting interviews and you have no background behind you, you've got like a very short distance, you can use this technique, f2, and you can shoot. I mean, I did one the other day, and I put in 4 stops of ND to make sure that I could keep the, really bright lit. 4 stops of ND, and basically it was by a window, I think. And basically that meant I could shoot it at, I don't know, it's f1.2. I put the C70 on facial tracking, and the interview looks amazing. The background's completely blown out, and it was a nonsense, horrible background. But it looks great because the background's out. Sometimes you can't, this is the beauty of autofocus. A lot of people complain about it and they don't like it on cameras. But for things like when you're like run and gun and you're doing stuff yourself, and it's essential. It gives you a very professional look to what you've done, and allows you to have a lot more flexibility. There's some people that say that you shouldn't. It's like some people still shoot digital cameras and film cameras manually. Well, good luck with that. But I mean, the thing is, the technology is there for you to be able to shoot aperture priority, or even program modes if you want to go that far. It's all been built for you. It's like they have autopilot for planes, and they still use that, don't they? This technology is not to be feared, and it can give you cool shots. So I think the thing is, it's like if you don't have, if you're on a black magic and you don't have autofocus and you're doing an interview, don't be crazy. Don't set to like f2 and expect that you're going to be able to ride the sort of focus ring to track something. You're not going to be able to do it, because if they move, you're out. You're at 4K. You've got a big sensor, 6K. And you're never going to be able to do it. So the thing is, it's a light it properly and shoot at f5.6, but get distance behind the subject. And then you'll get that look. I mean, these are the two components people don't sort of get their head around with the cinematography element of it. It's the distance behind where the object is, so it falls out of focus for you, as well as the aperture that you're at. But yeah, so I mean, the thing is, I think I've got a demonstration of here. What happens, I've got f2, and this rose, and I've just put it on tracking mode on the camera, and I can stay in focus. So here you go. So there, you've got the rose, it's tracking, it's in focus. The only thing you have to look out for is how the camera actually tracks backwards and forwards, the speed of the tracking, the speed of the focus pull. But you can adjust that in the cameras these days. So I think the whole thing with depth of field, it is a creative tool, and you should use it judiciously. Every single interview I see these days, someone's blown the background out. I mean, I've only done it here because it's like it has an example for you. Maybe you should shoot it f5.6. Maybe you want to get you want everything in focus. Use use f8. I mean, if you're shooting like cinematography shots, you're shooting a set. The last thing the set designer is going to want is that they've spent millions of pounds on the set, or for example, and you're shooting at f2.8 and you can't see anything. Have a look at the drill scenes. Full Metal Jacket is a good example of this, to have a look at how depth of field is used. Look at the scenes when all the soldiers are in the barrack rooms and he's marching around, and look at the background. Everything's nearly in focus right until the back. So they must have been on a sort of a f5.6, as I've sort of mentioned before. It's a very controlled thing. It's what do you want to see? There's no hard and fast rules behind how you use depth of field and how you employ it, but it's a creative tool. If you're using a close-up and you want to blow the back out, great, that's how you can do it, But if you want to sort of like me, I sort of want you to see what's going on behind me. And if I ramp this up to F8 now, I want to see everything. So I could be in a really interesting location. So it is very much a creative tool. For photographers, it's an easy one. We can stand there and go, well, I want to see that tree, or I don't want to see that tree. When you're filming, it's a bit problematic. We can't change shutter speed. We can't do certain things. We're locked at 150th or 180 degree angle, and you're at 25p or 24p. But it's something to bear in mind. It's sort of, do I really need to give myself, you're not on autofocus, do I really need to blow that background out? Or is it interesting and can I see it? And will it give more to the scene? But you're seeing it a lot today. I mean, as I said, it's very, very easy for people to sort of like do it because of the autofocus. But the thing is, you know, and the people with the black magic cameras sadly don't have the autofocus capability to do it. But do you need to do it? Is it really what you're doing? Does it really suit it? Because you see it now and it's completely overused. Watch a Transformers film, watch a battle sequence in a Transformers movie. Every single thing is in focus, okay? Because they want you to see the entire thing that's going on with the Transformers battling. When we go close to, like, you know, the key actor, the background behind them's not in focus. It's blown out because we're concentrating on that person. So I think the takeaway point with depth of field is don't go nuts with it and think about it as you compose your shot. Talk to the director, talk to whoever you want to think. Do you really want that background in, or do we need the background in? How are we going to do this? Am I going to be able to hold focus on that individual if I have to do it? If I don't have a focus puller and we're not marking it out, we're doing it running gun, how am I going to do that? Can the camera's autofocus handle it? Can it be done? Anyway, there's a lot of food for thought there. I mean, be interesting, you know, if you want to put your comments below about use of depth of field. Obviously, like and subscribe to the channel. I've never said that before, but please do. But if you've got comments about depth of field and how to use it and when to use it, please do. I mean, another thing to take into account with things is like lens compression. We'll look at lens compression in another video, but again, that's another very interesting subject. Okay, thanks for watching.